Hi, I'm Camilla. I'm a freelance accountant who saves every penny. But the day I bought a $900 house, my own mother told me to live like junk. Let me back up. It was a Tuesday night, and my family had gathered for our monthly dinner at Mom and Dad's place. The kind of dinner where Mom cooks too much food, Dad sits quietly at the head of the table, and my younger sister Rosa talks about her latest wellness journey like it's a TED Talk. I'd been saving for 3 years. 3 years of saying no to brunches, no to weekend trips, no to anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. I was 32 years old and still didn't own property. Every month, I watched my rent check disappear into someone else's mortgage while my savings account crawled forward at a painful pace. Then I found it. A foreclosed house listed at a county tax auction for $900. $900. The listing photos showed a disaster: peeling paint, a sagging roof, windows that looked like they'd been punched out by an angry giant. But it was mine. I could own something. Finally! I was so excited when I walked into that dinner. I'd just won the auction that afternoon, and I couldn't wait to share the news. Maybe they'd be proud. Maybe they'd see that I was finally making a smart financial move, that all those years of sacrifice were paying off. I should have known better. "I have news," I announced, setting down my fork. The table went quiet. Rosa looked up from her phone. Dad glanced at Mom. Mom smiled that tight smile she gets when she's already decided she won't like what comes next. "I bought a house today." For a second, there was actual excitement. Dad's eyebrows went up. Rosa leaned forward. "Wait, seriously? Camilla, that's amazing. Where is it?" "It's out in Bakersfield. I got it at a county auction for $900. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Rosa's face went from excited to confused to angry in about 3 seconds flat. "You what? $900? Camilla, Mom needed that money." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "My retreat!" Rosa's voice went up an octave. "The wellness retreat in Sedona. Mom was going to ask you to help cover it because my credit cards are maxed and—" "Rosa, I didn't know anything about a retreat." Mom set down her wine glass with a sharp click. "We were going to talk to you tonight, Camilla. Rosa's been struggling. She needs this retreat for her mental health. It's $4,500, and we thought as her older sister, you'd want to help." I felt something cold settle in my chest. $4,500. "It's an investment in wellness," Rosa said, her eyes already getting shiny with tears. "You wouldn't understand. You've never struggled with anxiety like I have." I'd been seeing a therapist for 2 years that I paid for out of pocket because I couldn't afford health insurance that covered mental health. I'd had 3 panic attacks in the past month alone, triggered by the stress of barely making rent. But sure, I wouldn't understand. "Rosa, I don't have $4,500 to give you. I used my savings to buy this house." "A $900 house!" Rosa was standing now. "What kind of house costs $900, Camilla? A literal shack? A crack den?" "It's a foreclosure. It needs work, but—" "But nothing!" Mom's voice cut through mine like scissors through paper. "Do you know how this makes us look? Our daughter buying some condemned property instead of helping family? Rosa needs this, Camilla. She's been through so much." Rosa had been through so much in the same way anyone in their late 20s goes through things: breakups, job changes, the normal stress of being an adult. But in our family, Rosa's struggles were always urgent, always priority, always requiring immediate financial intervention. Usually from me. "I can't afford to give Rosa that kind of money," I said quietly. "I make $3,200 a month after taxes. My rent is $1,800. I've been saving every penny for 3 years just to get this house." "Then you shouldn't have bought it," Mom said flatly. "Family comes first, Camilla. Or at least it should." Dad finally spoke up. "Now, honey, maybe—" "No, Richard. I'm tired of watching Camilla act like she's better than this family, always with her spreadsheets and her budgets and her 'I can't afford it' excuses. She just spent $900 on garbage but won't help her own sister heal." The word garbage hung in the air like smoke. I looked at Rosa, who was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I looked at Dad, who'd already retreated back into his silence. I looked at Mom, whose face was set in that expression I knew too well, the one that said I'd already been judged and found wanting. "It's my money," I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "I worked for it. I saved it. I have the right to—" "Then live like junk." Mom's voice was ice. "If you'd rather have a dump than help your family, then go live in your junk house. You've shamed us all." The table went silent. Rosa was staring at Mom, her tears forgotten for a second. Even Dad looked shocked. "Mom," I started, but she held up her hand. "I think you should leave, Camilla, and don't come back until you're ready to apologize and make this right." I sat there for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 10 seconds. Then I stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked out. I made it to my car before I started shaking. By the time I got back to my apartment, there were already texts waiting. Not from Mom or Dad, of course not. From my Aunt Linda, my cousin Marco, even my mom's friend Patricia, who I barely knew. "Your mother told me what happened. So disappointed in you. Family is supposed to come first, Camilla. Can't believe you'd choose property over your sister's health." I sat on my couch in the dark, staring at my phone, watching the messages roll in. Somewhere in my purse, folded in a plastic sleeve, was the deed to 447 Oak Street, Bakersfield, California. My house. My $900 disaster that everyone else thought was a mistake. Have you ever been called selfish for choosing yourself? Drop a comment, I see you. And if you're new here, subscribe. This story gets wild, I promise. Because that $900 house? It came with something they didn't see coming. The next morning, I woke up to discover I'd been removed from the family group chat. Not muted, removed. The chat had been renamed Real Garcias, and I could see from the notification that they were all still talking. Just without me. I stared at my phone screen, that particular kind of hurt settling in my chest that comes from being erased. Not blocked. That would have been cleaner somehow. Just quietly removed, like I'd never been there at all. My coffee tasted like cardboard that morning. I had a client meeting at 10, and I sat at my kitchen table trying to focus on their quarterly tax projections, while my phone kept lighting up with Instagram notifications. Rosa had posted a photo. It was a mirror selfie from Mom's guest bathroom, the one with the good lighting. She was wearing her "I'm vulnerable right now" face. You know the one. Slightly puffy eyes, no makeup, messy bun. The caption read, "Some people care more about broken houses than family unity. Family first, choosing healing, heartbroken." 43 likes already. Aunt Linda had commented, "Stay strong, baby girl. Real family shows up." I closed Instagram and tried to focus on work, but my phone kept buzzing. Text messages, not from the family chat I'd been exiled from, but from individual family members. Cousin Marco. "Yo, what's this about you buying a crack house instead of helping Rosa? That's cold." Aunt Linda. "Camila, I raised you better than this. Call your mother and apologize." Uncle Jose. "Your father's side of the family would never act this way. Embarrassing." And then the voicemail from Mom. I almost didn't listen to it, almost deleted it right there. But I pressed play. "Camilla." Her voice was tight, controlled. "I've been thinking about this all night, and I need you to understand something. You've always been difficult, even as a child. Always stubborn, always thinking you knew better than everyone else. But this is proof that you care more about yourself than this family. Rosa is suffering, and you bought a dump, a literal dump. For what? Pride? Because you want to say you own property? Grow up, Camilla. This is about more than you." The voicemail ended. I sat there staring at my half-drunk coffee, at the tax spreadsheets on my laptop screen, at the morning light coming through my apartment window that I'd be leaving soon because I couldn't afford to renew the lease. That's when the math hit me. Rosa's wellness retreat, $4,500. My monthly salary after taxes, $3,200. Rosa was asking for more than an entire month of my salary for a spa weekend in Sedona, while I ate ramen and skipped meals to save money. While I hadn't bought new clothes in 2 years, while I drove a car that needed duct tape to keep the passenger seat from collapsing, I opened my banking app and started scrolling. Not just recent transactions, I went back, way back, 3 years ago. Venmo to Rosa Garcia, $300. Memo, thanks sis, emergency car repair. 2.5 years ago, Venmo to Rosa Garcia, $450. Memo, you're a lifesaver, rent shortage? 2 years ago, Venmo to Rosa Garcia, $500. Memo, promise I'll pay you back this time. 18 months ago, Venmo to Rosa Garcia, $200. Memo, emergency room bill, I'm dying. 1 year ago, Venmo to Rosa Garcia, $750. Memo, last time I swear, new apartment deposit. I kept scrolling and scrolling. Every few months, another request, another emergency, another crisis that only I could solve. The total came to $8,300 over 3 years. None of it paid back. Not a single dollar. And Mom. I pulled up the transactions to her too. Emergency car repair that I later found out never happened. $200. Emergency dental work that turned into a weekend trip to Vegas based on her Facebook photos. $900. Total from Mom, $1,100. Also never paid back. I sat there staring at my phone screen, at $10,400 of my life that had just disappeared into my family's needs. My hands were shaking. I'd been the family ATM since I was 12 years old. I remember it now, sitting in that apartment with morning light turning my coffee cold. I was 12 and I'd saved my birthday money and allowance for 6 months to buy this cheap plastic piggy bank that looked like a Victorian house. I thought it was beautiful, had little windows you could see the coins through, a tiny chimney on top. Rosa borrowed it one weekend when I was at a friend's house. I came home to find it empty on my bed, cracked open, all my money gone. Mom said Rosa needed it for a school trip and that I was being selfish for being upset. Family shares, she'd told me. Don't be greedy, Camila. I was 12 years old and I'd learned that my money wasn't really mine, that my work, my saving, my sacrifice, none of it mattered when someone else needed it more, and someone else always needed it more. My phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from Aunt Carmen, Dad's sister. Mija, your mother called me. What is this about a $900 house? Are you okay? This doesn't sound like you. I almost laughed. It didn't sound like me because nobody in this family actually knew me. They knew the version of me who said yes, who helped out, who quietly transferred money and never asked for it back. They didn't know the version of me who'd been eating 79-cent ramen packets for dinner so I could save $50 a month, who walked to work when my car broke down instead of paying for repairs because every dollar mattered, who hadn't bought new jeans in 3 years and just kept sewing the holes closed. That night, I drove out to Bakersfield to see my house for the first time in person. The auction photos hadn't lied. It was a disaster. The roof sagged in the middle like a broken spine. 3 of the windows were just empty holes covered with plastic sheeting. The front door hung crooked on its hinges. The yard was dirt and dead weeds. But it was mine, 2 acres of mine. A structure that was mine. Nobody could take it away. Nobody could borrow it. Nobody could guilt me into giving it up. I walked around the outside first, taking photos on my phone. The siding was peeling, revealing older layers of paint underneath. Yellow, then blue, then gray. Someone had loved this house once. Someone had painted it cheerful colors and imagined a life here. The front door wasn't locked. Actually, the front door barely closed. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Mildew and dust and something else I couldn't quite identify. The floor creaked under my feet. There was trash in the corners, old newspapers, empty bottles. Water damage on the ceiling and dark spreading stains. In the living room, someone had spray-painted "Condemned" across one wall. I stood in the middle of that wreck of a house, and I started laughing. Not happy laughing, the kind of laughing that comes when everything is so absurd you can't process it any other way. This was my $900 house. This was the thing my family had disowned me over. This was the choice that made me difficult and selfish and shameful. I pulled out my phone and took a selfie, Me in my ratty jacket, standing in this condemned house with the spray-painted wall behind me. I posted it to Instagram with the caption, "New homeowner, it's not much, but it's mine." I didn't tag anyone, didn't add hashtags, just put it out there and turned my phone off. I spent another hour walking through the house. 4 rooms downstairs, 3 rooms upstairs that I didn't trust the stairs to reach, a kitchen where the cabinets hung open like broken jaws, a bathroom with no fixtures, just holes in the floor where they used to be. But in the back room, the one that must have been a bedroom once, there was a basement door. I hadn't known there was a basement. It wasn't in the auction listing. The door was swollen shut with water damage. I had to throw my shoulder against it 3 times before it finally gave way, sending me stumbling down the first 2 steps into darkness. I used my phone flashlight to navigate down, 13 steps, each one creaking under my weight. The basement smelled worse than the upstairs, deeper decay, older rot. But there, on a workbench against the far wall, under a layer of dust so thick it looked like gray velvet, I found something. An old survey map, the kind drawn by hand, with careful measurements and property lines marked in fading blue ink. I picked it up carefully, dust cascading off in sheets. The map showed the house, the property line, and, I squinted at the drawing, a creek. The property line extended all the way to a creek. I pulled up Google Maps on my phone and checked the address. There was a creek about 200 yards from the house, which meant, if this map was accurate, my 2 acres included water rights. In California, water rights could be worth more than the land itself. I stood in that basement, holding that dust-covered map, and something shifted in my chest. That cold, hurt feeling that had been sitting there since dinner at Mom's house started to change into something else. Something harder. Something sharper. I took a photo of the map, then I carefully rolled it up and took it with me. When I got back to my apartment that night, my phone was full of notifications I'd missed. More family members weighing in on my selfishness, more comments on Rosa's Instagram post. 47 more people had liked it. Aunt Linda had added another comment, "Praying for you, sweet girl." Some people will never understand sacrifice. But there was one notification that caught my eye. An email from someone named David Chen at Bakersfield Development Associates. Subject line, "Property Inquiry, 447 Oak Street." I opened it. "Ms. Garcia, I hope this email finds you well. I represent a development firm interested in properties in your area. We noticed that 447 Oak Street recently changed ownership, and we're interested in discussing potential acquisition. Would you be available for a call this week? We're prepared to make a competitive offer." I read it 3 times. Then I Googled Bakersfield Development Associates. They were a real company, mid-sized, based in Fresno, specializing in commercial development. I looked at the survey map I'd laid out on my coffee table, still dusty, still showing that creek line. Then I looked at my phone, at all those messages from my family about how selfish I was, about how I'd chosen wrong, about how I'd shamed them all. Quick thing. If you're getting value from this story, hit subscribe. I post these family justice stories because you deserve to know you're not alone. Okay, back to the chaos. I wrote back to David Chen and agreed to a call. Then I opened a new browser tab and searched for information about the property. County records, zoning maps, development plans for the area. What I found made my hands shake all over again, but this time it wasn't from hurt. My $900 junk house was sitting on land zoned for commercial development. And that creek? It ran through a zone that was about to be developed into a shopping complex. The previous owner hadn't known, or the previous owner's heir hadn't known. They'd sold it at a tax auction to get rid of the liability, but I knew now. I stayed up until 3 in the morning researching, taking screenshots, making notes. By the time I finally collapsed into bed, I had a folder on my laptop labeled 447 Oak Street with 47 documents inside. The last thing I saw before falling asleep was another text from Mom. "I guess we're not family anymore. I hope that house was worth it." I turned my phone face down and closed my eyes. That house? It was about to be worth more than she could imagine. The call with David Chen happened on a Thursday morning. I'd taken the day off work, told my clients I had a family emergency, which wasn't exactly a lie. "Ms. Garcia, thank you for getting back to me so quickly. David's voice was professional, warm. "I'll get straight to the point. We're developing a commercial complex about half a mile from your property. Your land would serve as an excellent access point, particularly given the creek access." I'd practiced staying calm. I'd rehearsed sounding casual, but my heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. "I see. What kind of offer are we talking about?" "We'd be prepared to offer $40,000 for the property as is. No need for you to make any repairs or improvements." $40,000. I'd paid $900. I somehow kept my voice steady. "That's an interesting offer. Can I ask how you determined that value?" "The zoning is favorable, and the creek access adds significant value for our development plans. Plus, we're looking to move quickly. If you're interested, we could have paperwork ready by next week." "I appreciate that. Can I have a few days to think it over?" "Of course. Take your time." He paused. "Though I should mention, if you're not interested, we'll likely approach other property owners in the area. This is a limited window." The pressure tactic was obvious, but I thanked him and ended the call. Then I sat at my kitchen table and stared at my laptop screen for 20 minutes straight. $40,000. From $900. That was a 4,344% return in 6 weeks. But something felt off. Why were they moving so fast? Why did he sound almost nervous when he mentioned other property owners? I spent the rest of the day digging deeper. Property records for the surrounding area. Development plans filed with the county. Environmental impact reports. My accountant brain kicked into overdrive, cross-referencing documents, building spreadsheets, tracking timelines. That's when I found it, buried in a county planning document from 8 months ago. The commercial complex wasn't just near my property. The main access road was planned to run directly through my land. Without my property, they'd have to reroute, adding at least 6 months and an estimated $300,000 to their project. $40,000 suddenly seemed like a bargain. For them. I opened a new search tab and looked up commercial land values in the area. Properties with creek access and favorable zoning were selling for $70,000 to $90,000. Some were listed even higher. My $900 house was sitting on land worth at least $70,000, and David Chen had hoped I wouldn't figure that out. I should have felt excited, triumphant even. Instead, I felt that same cold clarity I'd felt in the basement. The same feeling I'd had when I added up all the money I'd given my family over the years. I'd been underestimated my whole life. By my family, who saw me as an ATM. By David Chen, who thought I was too naive to do research. Everyone always assumed I didn't know what I was worth. I was done with that. That weekend, I drove back to Bakersfield. But this time, I didn't go straight to my property. I went door to door on the neighboring streets, introducing myself, asking questions. That's how I met Mrs. Chen. No relation to David, she assured me with a laugh. She was 73, had lived in her house for 42 years, and was out in her front yard pulling weeds when I walked up. "You're the girl who bought the Anderson place," she said before I could even introduce myself. "Saw you out there last week. Thought you must be brave or crazy or both." "Probably both," I admitted. "Can I ask you something? Do you know anything about development plans for this area?" Mrs. Chen pulled off her gardening gloves and gestured to her porch. "Sit down, honey. We should talk." Over the next hour, she told me everything. The development company had been buying up properties for 2 years. They'd approached her 3 times, each offer higher than the last. The most recent was $65,000 for her house and lot. The Anderson place, your place now, they tried to buy that too about a year ago. Offered the heir $40,000, but the heir, she lived back east somewhere, didn't know anything about property values out here. She was drowning in debt from medical bills and needed quick cash, so she just let it go to tax auction instead. Probably thought $900 was better than nothing. Mrs. Chen shook her head. "That land's worth a fortune, sweetie. That creek runs right through the commercial zone. Water rights in California, that's gold." "Why didn't you tell the heir this?" "Didn't know about her until it was too late. These developers, they're smart. They work quiet, move fast, pick off people one at a time. By the time folks realize what's happening, half the neighborhood's already sold." I pulled out my phone and showed her the email from David Chen. "They offered me $40,000. Mrs. Chen snorted. "Of course they did. Low enough that you might say yes. High enough that you think you're getting a deal. She looked at me hard. You gonna sell? I don't know yet. I'm still figuring things out. Well, you figure fast, honey. These developer types don't like waiting. And they really don't like it when someone doesn't play along. She patted my hand. But something tells me you're tougher than you look. I drove home thinking about what she'd said, about being tougher than I looked, about people not liking it when you don't play along. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. First time he'd contacted me directly since the dinner. Your mother is very hurt. Rosa cried for 3 hours yesterday. Is this really worth destroying the family? I stared at that message for a long time. Rosa had cried for 3 hours. But when I'd cried for 3 hours after being kicked out of my own family dinner, nobody had checked on me. When I'd panicked about making rent, nobody had offered help. When I'd skipped meals to save money, nobody had noticed. But Rosa cried, and suddenly it was my responsibility to fix it. I didn't respond to Dad. Instead, I opened my banking app and started taking screenshots. Every transaction to Rosa, every transaction to Mom. 3 years of emergencies, and just this once, and family helps family. I saved each screenshot in a folder labeled Receipts. Then I went further back. I found my old Venmo account, the one I'd used in college. More transactions to Rosa. More loans that were never paid back. I found old text messages, promises to pay me back, promises that this was the last time, promises that she'd remember this. By the time I was done, I had documentation of every dollar I'd given my family for the past 8 years. The total came to $10,400, more than 10 times what I'd paid for my house. I printed everything out, bank statements, Venmo screenshots, text messages. I put them in a manila folder and labeled it Family Investment. On Monday, I got another email from David Chen. Ms. Garcia, just following up on our conversation, we're prepared to increase our offer to $45,000 if you can make a decision this week. $5,000 more. Just like that. Which meant they were desperate. Which meant I had leverage. I called him back. Mr. Chen, I appreciate the increased offer. But I've been doing some research on property values in the area, and I think we need to have a different conversation. There was a pause. What kind of conversation? The kind where we both acknowledge what this land is actually worth. I know about the access road. I know about the creek access. I know you've been buying up properties for 2 years. So let's talk real numbers. Another pause, longer this time. What number did you have in mind? 75,000. He laughed, but it sounded forced. Ms. Garcia, I think you've been misinformed about. I have the county planning documents. I have property value comparisons. I have water rights documentation. Would you like me to send them over, or would you like to make a serious offer? The silence stretched out so long, I thought he might have hung up. I'll need to discuss this with my partners. Can I call you back tomorrow? Take your time, I said, echoing his words from our first conversation. Though I should mention, if you're not interested at fair market value, I might explore other options. This is a limited window. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking again, but this time it felt different. It felt like power. That night, Rosa posted another Instagram story. She was at the wellness retreat in Sedona, surrounded by other women in matching meditation robes. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to invest in yourself, even when others won't invest in you. Grateful for Mom's support." Self-love, Gay Cha Wellness. Cha Real Family. Mom had paid for it. Of course she had. The retreat that Rosa needed my $900 for, Mom had paid for anyway, which meant this was never about the money. It was about control, about keeping me in my place, about making sure I knew that my choices would never matter as much as Rosa's needs. I screenshot the story and added it to my folder. The next afternoon, David Chen called back. "We can do 55,000. That's our absolute maximum." 65, I countered. "And that's less than what you offered Mrs. Chen down the street." "How do you—" He stopped. "Ms. Garcia, you're making this very complicated. I'm making it fair. 65,000 or I'm not selling. And Mr. Chen, I'm an accountant. I'm very, Very good with numbers. So please don't insult me by pretending this isn't a good deal for you. He sighed. I'll have contracts drawn up. Can you come to our office on Friday to sign? I'll be there. After I hung up, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, just breathing. $65,000 from $900 in 6 weeks. I called Mrs. Chen and told her. She laughed so hard she started coughing. Good for you, honey. Good for you. But I wasn't done yet, because the story wasn't about the money. The story was about what my family had taken from me, what they'd made me believe about my own worth, and what I was about to prove to all of them. Rosa's post-retreat celebration brunch was scheduled for Sunday at 11. Mom had posted about it on Facebook, complete with a public event listing. Come celebrate Rosa's wellness journey. Brunch at our home, all family welcome. All family. Except me, obviously. But I was going anyway. I spent Friday signing paperwork at Bakersfield Development Associates. David Chen was professional, courteous, and clearly relieved that the deal was finally happening. The check wouldn't clear for another week, but I had the signed contracts. It was real. Saturday, I went shopping. Not for anything extravagant, just a simple black blazer, a white blouse, and a leather portfolio folder. I needed to look like someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Sunday morning, I woke up at 6. I couldn't eat breakfast. My stomach was twisted into knots that felt like they might never come undone. I kept rehearsing what I was going to say, how I was going to stay calm, how I wasn't going to let them make me feel small. I printed out fresh copies of everything. Bank statements showing the $65,000 sale. Venmo records showing $10,400 in loans to family. The survey map showing the creek access. The email chain with David Chen showing how I'd negotiated. Everything I needed to prove that I hadn't made a mistake, that I'd made the smartest decision of my life. At 10:45, I pulled up to Mom and Dad's house. The driveway was already full of cars. I recognized most of them. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends. The whole Garcia clan had turned out to celebrate Rosa's wellness journey. I sat in my car for 5 minutes, just breathing. My hands were sweating against the leather portfolio. I could see people through the front windows, laughing, holding mimosa glasses, probably eating Mom's famous chilaquiles. They'd kicked me out. They'd called me selfish and shameful and difficult. They'd removed me from the family chat and posted about me on social media and made me into the villain of their story. But I had receipts. Literal receipts. And I was done being the ATM who apologized for wanting something of my own. I got out of the car. The front door was unlocked. I walked in without knocking. The conversation in the living room didn't stop immediately. It took a few seconds for people to notice me standing there in the doorway, holding my leather portfolio, wearing my new blazer. Rosa saw me first. She was standing by the fireplace in a flowy white dress, probably from some expensive boutique she couldn't afford, holding a champagne flute. Her mouth fell open. "Camila?" The room went quiet. 23 people all turned to look at me. I saw Aunt Linda, Uncle Jose, Cousin Marco, Dad's sister Carmen, Mom's friend Patricia, and Mom standing by the dining table with a serving spoon in her hand, frozen. "Hi, everyone," I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Sorry I'm late. Rosa, congratulations on the retreat. I hope it was everything you needed." Rosa's eyes were wide. "What are you doing here?" "Well, I heard there was a celebration happening, and I have something to celebrate too." I walked further into the room. Nobody moved. "See, it turns out that $900 junk house? It's been quite an interesting investment." I could feel Mom's eyes on me, that familiar anger building. But I didn't look at her. Not yet. "Rosa, you posted on Instagram that sometimes you have to invest in yourself even when others won't invest in you." I thought that was really profound, really wise. I opened my portfolio. So, I wanted to share my investment results with everyone. I pulled out the first document, the sale contract with Bakersfield Development Associates. I held it up so people could see the letterhead, the official stamps, the signatures. This is the sale contract for 447 Oak Street. That junk house I bought for $900? I just sold it for $65,000. The room was so quiet I could hear someone's watch ticking. $65,000, I repeated. That's a return of over 7,000% in 6 weeks. Not bad for garbage, right, Mom? Mom's face had gone white. Dad was staring at the contract like he couldn't quite process what he was seeing. But wait, there's more, I said, pulling out the next document. This is a survey map I found in the basement of that house. Shows the property line extending to a creek. Water rights in California are valuable. Did you know that? I didn't either, but I learned. Turns out the development company needed that access for their commercial complex. Without my property, they'd have to reroute and spend an extra $300,000. Aunt Linda had set down her mimosa. Cousin Marco was leaning forward, actually listening. I did my research. I negotiated. I got what the land was actually worth, because I'm an accountant and I'm very, very good with numbers. I looked at Mom now, finally. Just like I'm good at keeping track of money I lend to family. I pulled out the bank statements. This is 3 years of Venmo transactions to Rosa, $8,300 to be exact. None of it paid back. I laid them on the coffee table. Here are the transactions to Mom, $2,100. Also, never paid back. Rosa's champagne flute was shaking in her hand. Camilla, what are you... In total, I've given this family $10,400 over the past 3 years, every time there was an emergency, every time someone needed help, every time Rosa needed rent money or Mom needed car repairs. I pulled out the screenshot of Rosa's Instagram post. And when I finally spent $900 on myself, less than 1/10 of what I'd given you, I got kicked out and told to live like junk. Mom found her voice. Family doesn't keep score, Camilla. You're right, Mom. Family doesn't keep score. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. But banks do, and credit cards do, and Venmo does. And every single one of these transactions is documented, time-stamped, with little memo notes like, "Thanks, sis, you're a lifesaver, and I promise I'll pay you back this time." The room was completely silent now. Even the people who'd been in the kitchen had wandered in to see what was happening. Rosa's wellness retreat cost $4,500. You told me you needed my $900 to help pay for it. But Mom paid for it anyway, didn't you, Mom? The retreat happened. Rosa went. She's standing right here in her expensive white dress, holding champagne, celebrating. I looked around the room. So this was never about the money? This was about me daring to say no, about me choosing myself for once in my life. Aunt Linda spoke up from the couch. Wait. You kicked her out over $900 that was her own money, and now she's made $65,000? It's more complicated than that, Mom said, but her voice was weak. Is it? I asked. Because it seems pretty simple to me. I saved my own money. I bought property that I researched. I increased its value through smart negotiation. I did everything right, and you told me I'd shamed you all. Rosa started crying. Of course she did. You're making this about money when it's about family. About love. About what, Rosa? I cut her off. About how I'm supposed to fund your lifestyle while I eat ramen? About how my dreams don't matter as much as your self-care? About how I'm difficult and selfish for wanting something of my own? Dad finally spoke. Camilla, we owe you an apology. Mom shot him a look that could have frozen lava. No. I closed my portfolio. You don't owe me an apology. You owe me $6,500. That's 10% interest on the $10,400 I lent you over 3 years. Business standard. You can't be serious, Mom said. I'm completely serious. You want to talk about family? About what family does? Family pays back loans. Family doesn't exploit the one member who's responsible with money. Family doesn't kick someone out for making a smart financial decision. I looked at Rosa. And family definitely doesn't post on Instagram about others not investing in you when you owe them $8,300. Uncle Jose cleared his throat. Anna, is this true? Did you really remove her from the family chat and kick her out over her buying a house? Mom's face was red now. She chose property over her sister's health. I chose myself, I said quietly. For the first time in my adult life, I chose myself. And that's what you can't forgive. Cousin Marco stood up. This is insane. Rosa, You owe Camilla $8,000? Rosa was full on sobbing now. She never asked for it back. She gave it freely. I gave it because you said it was an emergency, because you said you'd pay me back, because I thought that's what family did. I picked up my portfolio. But I'm done being the family ATM. I'm done setting myself on fire to keep you all warm. And I'm definitely done apologizing for knowing my worth. Aunt Carmen, Dad's sister, walked over to me. She was the only one who'd texted asking if I was okay instead of accusing me. Mija, I'm proud of you. Don't encourage this, Mom snapped. Anna, you kicked your daughter out of the house for making a smart investment. Then that investment turned out to be worth 70 times what she paid. And instead of being proud, you're still trying to make her the villain? Carmen shook her head. That's not family. That's control. The room erupted. Half the people were arguing with Mom. The other half were asking Rosa about the $8,000, and Dad was just standing there looking like he wished the floor would swallow him whole. I didn't need to stay for the rest. I'd said what I came to say. I'd shown them the receipts. I'd proven that I wasn't stupid or selfish or shameful. I was just done. I'm leaving, I announced. Nobody seemed to hear me over the chaos. But before I go, I want to be clear about something. I don't need an apology. I don't need to be added back to the family chat. I don't need Mom to admit she was wrong. I looked at each of them. What I need are boundaries. I'll see you all at holidays. I'll be polite. I'll bring food. But I will never, ever discuss my finances with you again. And if anyone asks me for money, the answer is no. So you're just going to abandon your family? Rosa asked through her tears. No, Rosa. I'm going to stop letting my family abandon me while pretending I'm the one who left. I walked to the door. Behind me, I could hear Mom trying to regain control of the room, could hear Rosa crying harder, could hear aunts and uncles arguing about who knew what. But I didn't turn around. I got in my car, closed the door, and sat there for a minute. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, but underneath the adrenaline and the fear and the leftover anger, there was something else. Relief. Pure, clean relief. I drove home to my apartment, the one I'd be leaving next month. I had $65,000 coming. Minus taxes, that would leave me with about $52,000. Enough to pay off my $18,000 in student loans. Enough for a $30,000 down payment on a real house, one with a roof that didn't leak and windows that closed. Enough for a $14,000 emergency fund that nobody else could touch. When I got home, I took off the blazer and hung it carefully in my closet. I made myself a cup of tea and sat on my couch, looking at the manila folder full of receipts that had changed everything. My phone started buzzing. Text after text after text. Dad, I'm sorry, your mother and I need to talk. Can we meet? Aunt Carmen, you did the right thing, Mija. Don't let anyone tell you different. Cousin Marco, holy shit, $65K? That's incredible. And then, the one that made me laugh out loud. Rosa, I can't believe you embarrassed me like that in front of everyone. You've always been jealous of me. I blocked her number. Then I blocked Mom's. Dad's I kept. Maybe someday we'd talk, maybe not. But that was my choice now. 3 days later, the check cleared. $65,000 appeared in my bank account like magic. Like proof that I'd been right all along. That I wasn't stupid or selfish or shameful. That I knew exactly what I was worth. I paid off my student loans that same day, watched the balance go from $18,000 to $0, cried for about 20 minutes straight. Then I started house hunting. Real houses this time with working plumbing and roofs that didn't sag. Small houses, starter houses, but houses that were mine. I found one in 3 weeks, a tiny 2-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood with a yard just big enough for a garden. The mortgage payment was less than my rent had been. I had enough left over for furniture, for repairs, for an emergency fund that could actually handle emergencies. The day I moved in, I hung something on the wall of my new home office. The original deed to 447 Oak Street, matted and framed with a small brass plate underneath that read, "The best $900 I ever spent." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Camilla? It was a woman's voice I didn't recognize. Yes? Hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm I'm the daughter of the man who used to own your house, the one you bought at auction. My stomach dropped. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. No, please don't apologize. I'm calling because I saw the county records. You sold it for $65,000. She paused. I let it go for $900 because I thought it was worthless. I was drowning in my dad's medical debt and I didn't know. I didn't do the research. I'm so sorry, I said quietly. If I'd known. That's not why I'm calling. She laughed, but it sounded sad. I'm calling to say congratulations and to say thank you. Thank you? For what? For doing what I couldn't, for seeing the value in something everyone else called garbage, for fighting for what you deserved. Her voice cracked a little. My whole life, I let people tell me what things were worth, what I was worth. And I lost everything because I believed them. But you didn't. You did the research. You fought. You won. And that gives me hope that maybe I can do it too. We talked for another 20 minutes. I gave her the name of the real estate attorney who'd helped me, told her about the resources I'd found for researching property values, shared everything I'd learned. When we hung up, I stood in my new home office, looking at that framed deed, and I finally understood what that $900 had really bought me. Not a house, not even $65,000. It bought me the knowledge that I could trust myself, that I could say no, that I could choose me and not be selfish for it, that I was worth so much more than I'd been told my whole life. 6 months later, I started a financial coaching side business, teaching people to say no, to set boundaries, to research and negotiate and know their worth. It brought in an extra $2,000 a month. Rosa never apologized. She blocked me on all social media instead. According to Aunt Carmen, she moved back in with Mom and Dad after 3 months because she couldn't afford rent. Mom sent passive-aggressive texts every few weeks. I guess we're not close anymore. Rosa misses you. Family is supposed to forgive. I stopped reading them after the first month. But Dad surprised me. He showed up at my new house one Saturday afternoon with a check for $500 and a note that said, I'm sorry. You were right. I should have stood up for you. I deposited the check, sent him a text. Thank you. That means more than you know. We meet for coffee sometimes now, just us. We don't talk about Mom or Rosa. We talk about my business, his retirement plans, old memories that don't hurt to remember. It's not perfect, but it's honest, and that's more than I ever had before. So here's my question for you. Have you ever been shamed for choosing yourself? Maybe you bought something, set a boundary, or just said no and your family made you the villain. Drop your story below. I read every single comment, and if this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear they're not selfish, they're surviving. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong. I'm sitting in my home office now, in the house that financial responsibility built. The morning sun comes through clean windows that close properly. There's coffee in my cup that I can afford without guilt. And on the wall behind me, that framed deed reminds me every single day. The junk house taught me my worth isn't measured by who I please. It's measured by what I know I deserve. And I deserve so much more than I was told.